Well, good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Beal Early Childhood Center Building Committee to order. First item of business is to approve the minutes of October 26th, 2021. Any comments, edits, corrections? And seeing none, would someone kindly make a motion?
So moved.
To approve? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Item 3 is to review and act on bill schedules and warrants. As we traditionally do at every meeting, we have them in front of us. Would someone unless there are questions, would someone kindly make a motion to approve the vendor warrants?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Item 4, various reports. First, we'll hear from Owner's Project Manager, Mr. Hartley.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. I believe in front of you, everyone has the PMA budget summary sheet that is a typical handout for this group. Quick highlights of that are ProPay reimbursements to date, $28 million. We have ProPay number 33 submitted into the system. That is a pending reimbursement of $967,000. We are quickly approaching, or over the next probably few months, over the next few ProPay reimbursements, hitting the MSBA's 95% cap. PMA is looking into that right now as we're going through. We're seeing when we're going to hit it, where we're going to hit it, and we'll keep this group advised and the necessary parties advised as to where that is. Just so everyone remembers, MSBA halts their reimbursement at 95% until project closeout. Project closeout likely to occur 10 months following the completion of the punch list and the commissioning. So we're still working towards that. So we're still 10 months from that final date. Punch list is dwindling down. I know I'm kind of still in a lot of Frank's glory here, but punch list is dwindling down, and we're working on those commissioning items as well. We will have one further change order for this group. We don't have it tonight. I think we're trying to wrap it all into one so that there's just one remaining. But the items are being taken care of. They've been reviewed on a basis. They just haven't reviewed at the project base level and with the group that's been approving those small PCOs as they're coming. So they haven't been paid for yet, but they've been accompanied into the project. And approved and reviewed. So those are going well. They're not large dollar figures. I believe we're talking well under $50,000, probably under $30,000 for the remaining change order. Out of owner's construction contingency, and then some very slight stuff out of GMP, which is within the guaranteed maximum price. So in great position there, looking to turn back quite a few dollars back to the town of Shrewsbury over the next few months when the project does finally close out, and in a great spot.
Thank you. Any questions for Owner's Project Manager? Seeing none, we'll move on to a report from the architect. Good evening, Ms. Crockett.
Good evening. Yes, we are doing very well, I think, with the closeout of the project overall. One of the advantages of this project over many others is the demo happened early in the construction sequence. So we demolished the building, put in the new building, and so the site work was able to happen right on the heels of that. Like with Sherwood and many other buildings, we have to wait to abate and demolish a building before we can finish the site work. So the 10-month review looks really good in that regard, as well as the effort we put into closing out now. We are finalizing the as-built drawings and associated narrative with the Lake Street acceptance, which will go to the town in early January. That's our schedule at the moment. And we've been working with Mr. Girardi and the educational team, Mr. Collins, on closing out the FF&E, being sure they have contacts for all of the companies. If there's more, there's always something that's needed or that wasn't anticipated. And our consultant developed a very nice digital format for the overall FF&E part of the project, so that there's a binder, if you will, to which the staff can go to look for what is this chair or what is this piece of equipment and follow up on it. And so that was a good improvement. And we continue to work with the entire team to be sure things are closing out as well as possible.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? Patrick?
Yes, Mr. LeBeau, I would just echo the comments and say that the work that LPA did and Blue Line Design, the consultants, to assist with the FF&E purchases, the procurement, the budget management, and all the documentation, as you said, has been extremely helpful. And I know Mr. Girardi is working with his staff and has been since the opening to put together a list, which we still are working on right now, of some additional items that we need to procure after having moved in and settled in for a little while into the new house, so to speak, and rearranged the furniture. So we'll be making those over the next couple of weeks, still within FF&E allocation. So that's, some of that activity is still ongoing, albeit, minimal. But the work that your team and consultant did has been very helpful in that regard, so thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments for the architect? Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to construction manager, Mr. Payer.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yes, as Katie and Walter said, we're at the tail end of the project, primarily doing punch list at this point. And for all you not sure what a punch list is, it's just making sure that all the touch-up, putty, painting, tile, everything is the way it should be. We have ongoing, I work with Keith on a daily basis, with Christy, his custodial staff, to make sure that anything that comes up, service, warranty type stuff is dealt with promptly and efficiently. And they are really, we're just about there. Tomorrow and Friday, we have folks coming in because the kids won't be in school, working on a couple of items that we just can't do while they're in school. So we had folks there over the weekend, again, just doing stuff that is sensitive to children being around. So we're at the tail end, ends in sight, so all is well.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments for the construction manager?
Chair, just one comment.
Oh, sure, please.
So this week, I think we're signifying close to the end because Fontaine has had an individual who has been kind of left behind at Beal to kind of handle a lot of the day-to-day work. His name is Jim Anderson, and much like most folks at Beal, we kind of pull him into our family and make him one of our own. And so this week he is ending his time, so we wished him well today.
Yeah.
Sent him off with a nice thank you, but I think just a really great representation of the high quality that Fontaine's done all the way through. Just a
Thank you.
great support.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, everything, I mean, that I've heard has been so positive about the school, including my two grandsons who live out of town have highly rated the playground area. And it's on their list now for when they come to visit. Which is just great. We do have some new business to discuss tonight, which we often don't. Item 5A is to review and act on the proposal to study the existing conditions and future needs of Shrewsbury Public School buildings. Mr. Mizigar had to remind me today why this item is on our agenda and not in any other place, and members of the committee might know this from when the committee originally was constituted, but if not, could you refresh everyone's memory and walk us through this a little bit?
Sure. So this initiative, which would be to lay out and understand better the space needs of the Shrewsbury Public School buildings and various facilities, has been a part of the scope of work for this project from a funding standpoint from the original appropriation of town meeting. And we've considered bringing it forward at other times, but obviously better late than never, and moving towards the end of this project and now looking towards the horizon of what's next. I don't think anyone in this community is so naive to think that, there won't be a next project at some point in time. We have well over 1.1 million square feet of building space now in all of our facilities, and the schools make up a significant portion of that. So it's always important for us to understand, prioritize, and plan for what those next projects may be. And further, the MSBA, when we seek their participation on a project, looks to a study like this to understand and make sure that we're prioritizing sufficiently and making the right decision as we use general state taxpayer dollars for our next project. So we've been working, somewhat off and on over the course of the whole project with Katie Crockett and her team, and she's kind of pulled her thoughts together most recently after a conversation with the team here in Shrewsbury, and has revisited this proposal and sends it to us this evening. And I'll stop there, and maybe Katie could provide a few highlights of that document.
Thank you. I would like to start by saying that I proudly was a part of the first study that was completed in 1997. And Mr. Cox was.
I was part of it as well, yes.
I think that Dr. Sawyer might have been assistant principal at
I was a newbie in
Floral
1997.
Street. Yes, so, and it is a document that the town has marched through, and that's why we are where we are, which is fantastic. It shows the planning prowess of the town and the forethought, and this is another example of that. So the thought is to use the format from the 1997 document, which was evaluate conditions, develop the program, and consider those relative to sequential options to address a 10-year enrollment projection, yet a longer anticipated time period to really meet all of those capital objectives in that period of time. And I think we may have had 6 or 7 options in the original study, and there was some wonderful discussion that happened, and then one was authorized, and so the Floral Street had already been completed. The high school was built. The former high school was converted to a middle school, and a new middle school was built, and then now we're into this new elementary school. So it's our pleasure to be a part of this. This would be a wonderful opportunity to keep that cycle going. And that's the way we have developed this proposal. An important component is that the study that was done of the town's facilities about 5 years ago is going to be something that we can build upon very well. And Mr. Baldinger has talked with us about some other documents that are available. So we have a nice base that we can work from on this one. I remember flying airplanes over all the sites and getting aerial shots of the sites in 1997. So, and we really had to go through the existing documents just to develop the base of that. So that's a tremendous benefit for us to have the technology that we have today relative to sites and the data that's here in the town and what's available from that previous study. The enrollment projections are going to be incredibly important and a part of that in terms of anticipating what your town's school population will be in this super popular town. And we're looking forward to working with the administration again to right-size the program for each of these elements based on that. And then once we have that data, the idea is we will look at it in a very broad scheme in terms of how to address the long-term capital needs within the school department. What changed from when we had initially looked at this, when the first RFS came out for the Beal project, is there's a request to incorporate pre-kindergarten which seems very appropriate to us from the level of interest in pre-kindergarten on all fronts these days, as well as analyzing the administration building and the ability to support the needs there for the education department. Additionally, we will talk about the energy goals for each of the buildings, since that is also something that is obviously becoming a mandate within the state and would be wise to consider. And then we're available at appropriate times to assist you with public hearings if they're of value. We've talked about it at each juncture. I can imagine in terms of the final report in particular, that might be important, but the programming, perhaps with the school committee as well as the building committee, may be important. And so we've woven that time into here as well. And we're expecting, if it were a seamless process, it would take us about 7 to 9 months to do it. If there may be junctures at which you want to say, let's time out, let's take a look at this, let's get some input from the community, and then we'll start again. So that would be the only caveat I would have in terms of it going longer than that. So I think that summarizes it essentially.
Mr. Mizuko, thank you.
So, one thing that we had discussed is the duration of this project and the life of this committee. You know, this committee was, scoped out for Beal. We're starting this later in the Beal project. So we are hoping that this committee would consider this evening that the direction for the work in the report and the outcome of the report would be the responsibility of Dr. Sawyer and I, or the superintendent and town manager. You know, we have the obligation to our individual appointing authorities to keep the school committee and the Board of Selectmen informed, and then work through them, you know, once this committee has, you know, ceased its work. So that's the only other thing that I wanted to add is, in consideration, if there is a motion, you know, to move this forward, that's how the responsibilities would fall.
Questions or comments from members of the committee?
Mr. Book,
Dr. Sawyer.
I know that when, back a number of years ago, when we first brought the idea of funding this project, and doing the design of the Beal project to the town meeting, that the request was made for funding in order to make sure this could happen. And I recall Mr. Morgado making that very specific point at the time, the town manager at the time, that the time was coming for a new study. And the study that Leonard Pagano did in 1997 did, as Ms. Crockett mentioned, served the community very well. And I think that going forward, one of the hallmarks of why we've had such a successful building program for schools, in addition to municipal buildings over the last couple of decades, is the planful nature of the work that's been done. So I think this makes a lot of sense, and I fully support it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Certainly, the Board of Selectmen and the manager's office has looked to that. The previous study is almost the starting point for everything we've done since, as you mentioned. And it seems like it's time to update that and look more into the future again. Is the committee comfortable with this concept of allowing the manager and the superintendent to provide the review? We don't want to step on the committee's toes. I see nods and no shakes, so, okay. Anything else before I ask for a vote? Okay, could someone kindly make a motion to approve going forward with the proposal to study the existing conditions and future needs of Shrewsbury Public School buildings, with the understanding that review and direction will be provided by the town manager and the superintendent of schools?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. And that takes us to 5B. And again, I think we did briefly speak about this at our last meeting. Much of the work of the committee is ministerial at this point in time, and well, it's really the pleasure of the committee. The committee could choose, as this agenda item mentions, could designate member or members to act as the agent of the committee and do its work. As far as approvals, the committee would not sunset. The committee would still, regardless of how we act on this vote, the committee will, once if not more, will need to meet around closeout. And possibly for reasons unknown for other items. But what we all see is the routine business now, which brings us together once a month. I think last meeting, everyone seemed to be somewhat favorable to the concept of perhaps finding a different way to do it. So, Mr. Misery, could you just kind of walk us through, would there be any, would this be a non-conditional, well, I guess it depends on the vote, but could you guys just walk us through?
Sure.
the
So the general law provides that a committee may take such an action, and maybe in smaller towns it's done. Board of Selectmen doesn't even meet monthly, but in order to provide meet our responsibilities under and with the MSBA and other general laws for prompt payment of the contractors, but not needing to pull the committee together, we have this option to take a vote as the committee. So just to be really clear with everyone, the committee's not giving up its responsibilities, it's delegating that to a subset, and then we would again reconvene and actually still have to adopt all these warrants through a formal vote of the committee, could be well after, the bills are already paid. So I think it would be important that we understand, although unlikely, we have a set procedure already for change orders. If something would pop up, does the committee want to, set a threshold where the three of us would approve up to continued $50,000 for any change orders, and then be able to basically just approve the bills and the warrants that would otherwise come to the committee? And as everyone knows who's been here with this group that always, we're always here in attendance. We've been having 15 or 20-minute meetings, and we're just approving bills pretty much at this point. So that's the overview. And then I would, if I may, recommend that perhaps it would be Dr. Sawyer, myself, and Mr. LeBeau would, sign off on everything on behalf of the committee, and including any change orders if we want to discuss that.
So I'm happy to serve as the board, well, one of the board's representatives, but also if anyone else happens to be interested in doing it, I take no pride of ownership, but as I've previously mentioned, you all have done a great deal more heavy lifting on this project than I have, and I'd be happy to do that. So any questions relative to this?
Nope.
And you just mentioned change orders. I mean, you have the word orders
Yep.
in the language of the agenda item, so that would be any and all orders,
Yep.
correct?
Correct.
Well, seeing no further discussion, would someone kindly make a motion to designate Town Manager Mizikar, Superintendent of Schools Sawyer, and myself to act on behalf of the committee to approve all bills, drafts, orders, and payrolls pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 56.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. That takes us to item 6 that I think we're going to pass over tonight. There will be a meeting at some point in time in the future, and everyone will be given good notice in advance of that. But other than that, again, I feel like I came in at the end of the line for this, so I do want to thank, the proof is in the pudding. Drive over Lake Street, and we all know the great work that this committee and the various consultants have done for us, and the town is very, very appreciative of it. And another high value, excellent project. So with that, could we have a motion, unless anyone has, because this
If
could
I-
be your
if
last
I-
time together for a while, so, right.
Very briefly, I would like to just say to the committee what a privilege it has been for our firm to work with you. Absolutely typical Shrewsbury top shelf experience, and thank you very much for including us at the table and part of the team.
Anything else? Hearing none, and I've worked in other communities, and I agree, it doesn't always go like that. With that, we'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye, opposed, so voted. Thank you very much. Good evening.